Hey, good morning. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wayne Burke. You might hear the accents are not quite Czech, although my wife is from the Czech Republic. I've been trying to learn Czech for the last 10 years. It's a very complicated language. So I've been raised in South Africa, England, and America. I come from a police law enforcement background, and I'm going to give you some information that might be a little scary, so I'm going to give you some heads up. With the current geopolitical landscape, we want to always verify and validate all the information we get. So don't believe anything I say unless you go and check it yourself. Otherwise, some of you might think I'm some conspiracy theorist. That's not me. I do a lot of work for the US government, the military. I was in a special law enforcement unit, rapid response. I've been shot. I've been many near-death experiences. So I see the world from my eyes. You might not see the world from my eyes because you have different experiences. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking about artificial intelligence. How many of you are already using AI? Who's building with AI? Wow, awesome. Not enough hands, but a lot more than what I was expecting. So we're going to take you through the latest and the greatest of techniques, technologies. I'm going to be showing you a lot of demonstrations because I'm working in drone defense, radio frequency, biomedical devices, and the cloud. The cloud, your software-defined infrastructures, where we're doing a lot of response for incidences. And a lot of the things I'm going to be sharing with you is to share information that's going to help you to focus on your technology skills so you can improve your job skills with augmenting your abilities with artificial intelligence. So you can see some of my history. I won't get into that. You will probably realize it's not the first time I've been in the Czech Republic. As I mentioned, my kids were born and raised here, and there's a lot of positive things in the Czech Republic. Maybe not so good for the weather that we had a few weeks ago, some extra water floods, but here's an overview of the things I'm going to be talking about today, and let's jump straight into it. So first of all, some of the things I'm going to talk about relates to biomedical devices. You won't believe things unless you build it yourself. I've been building technologies for more than 10 years using artificial intelligence. So that's, again, where my ideas are very different. I'm based in California. And of course, Silicon Valley, you've seen enough of what's going on in America and China and Russia and Iran and Ukraine and Russia and all. It's a cyber war we are in right now. So let's start off with how well we can now understand what people are thinking, how their brains work. This is a quick, short demonstration of the neural link implant. How can we read the brain waves of, in this case, a monkey, but it's already been deployed now in human subject cases.
This is Paige. He's a 9-year-old mechanic who had a Neuralink placed in each side of his brain about 6 weeks ago. If you look carefully, you can see that the fur on his head hasn't quite fully grown back yet. He's learned to interact with a computer for a tasty banana smoothie delivered through a straw. We can interact with the Neuralinks simply by pairing them to an iPhone, just as you might pair your phone to a Bluetooth speaker. The links record from more than 2,000 electrodes implanted in the regions of Paige's motor cortex that coordinate hand and arm movements.
So that's reading his brain waves.
Neurons in this region modulate their activity with intended hand movement. For example, some might become more active when he moves his hand up, and others when he moves it to the right. By recording from many neurons and feeding their activity into a decoder algorithm, we are able to predict Paige's intended hand movements in real time. First, we calibrate the decoder by recording neural activity as Paige uses the joystick to move a cursor to targets presented on the screen. As he's playing this game, we are wirelessly streaming, in real time, firing rates from thousands of neurons to a computer. Using these data, We calibrate the decoder by mathematically modeling the relationship between patterns of neural activity and the different joystick movements they produce.
So now they've removed the cable, and it's the monkey's thoughts that are controlling the computer. No cable.
After only a few minutes of calibration, we can use the output from the decoder to move the cursor instead of the joystick. Paige still moves the joystick out of habit, but as you can see, it's unplugged. He's controlling the cursor entirely with decoded neural activity. Our goal is to enable a person.
So I think it's clear that we can read people's brain waves. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but we realize that we've got all of these new biomedical devices, implants, people who are sick, they're monitoring their blood, they're monitoring their heart, maybe pacemakers. So you have to expect the new age of incident response, as an example, in the cloud, where you're going to be responding to somebody who's been hacked. Their biomedical device has been hacked, and you have to respond to that incident, right? It's not conspiracy theory, it's not magical stuff. This is reality. We are using this technology as we are speaking. So it's not something that might happen, it's already happening. This is a device from a well-known Dave Osprey. He's been hacking himself. He's known as the father of biohacking. And they're not cheap. It's using pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And this is, again, not replacing your standardized type of medicine, but it's there as a therapeutic. So it's going to help your existing treatments. A lot of these devices have been researched. There's a lot more white papers and studies coming out left, right, and center. We're using neuromodulation. Again, more studies of how we can actually stimulate for psychiatric behaviors, as an example. The problem is, a lot of these types of devices could potentially be weaponized. So here's an example of a special flow headset. Now, you can go to the doctor, and they're going to prescribe you a pill. You can see the effect would be 26% of participants were free. 26% was free of depression after 6 weeks. That's with a pill. Then you go to a psychologist or psychiatrist. So after 8 weeks, 33% were depression free. With technology, after 10 weeks, 56% of people were depression free. So the science speaks for itself. This is not me, this is science speaking, right? And onto some of the devices. Now you're going to see, I'm going to demonstrate some of these devices that can be used for hacking your phones, your Bluetooth headsets, your motor cars, all of these crazy things that we don't realize. Right now, we are still failing in detecting attacks. Norway just released a new study. After a company is hacked, it took them 197 days to detect that they were hacked. So we need to be engineering a lot better. They were not aware for 197 days that their whole company had been compromised or hacked. How was it done? Well, maybe using a little cheap Raspberry Pi device called Ponagotchi. Ponagotchi's been developed to use artificial intelligence. It's a cheap €20 computer with a cheap e-ink screen. And this is trained specifically on 2.4 gigahertz. So I want to encourage you to learn. Go and take a look at this project, go and build it, and then to learn about AI, there's nothing like solving a problem. So you want to build and train your new language models, your new AI models, whatever you're doing within the AI field, you're going to learn how to build a model for 5 gigahertz as an example. So you would have to train a Raspberry Pi 4 or Raspberry Pi 5 because this is the old one that only has 2.4 gigahertz. The new Raspberry Pis, or very small form factor computers, obviously have 5 gigahertz as well. So you've got to retrain that knowledge. Now, some of you are not aware of this, but there's between 10 to 20 million of devices being sold worldwide that are manufactured in China that are with back doors. So again, not me talking about the back doors. Let's have a look at an example of where we can see these devices. Amazon, of course.
Let's imagine I moved to a new place. I had to replace my router for some reason. I need to get online as soon as possible, and so I'm looking for a router. Now, if I'm like most people, and usually I am, I'm probably going to be looking for a cheap router that's easy to install. But I'm not going to go to just any place to find it. So I head over to Amazon, and I see the top-rated routers with the lowest prices. Wavelink looks good. Read the reviews, everything seems fine. Click the order button, and that's that. Looks fine, sleek, modern, capable, a little cheaply made, but not surprising given the price. Now, these evil Nazis are not going to shoot themselves, so I need to set up my router as quickly as possible and get started on my game. Bam! Everything is set up. I have the internet, game going well, end of story, right? Not so fast. While I may have paid a small price for that wavelength router in terms of dollars, what I end up paying is actually much bigger. In fact, it's huge. And that's because of the hidden backdoors placed within these Chinese-made devices. Yes, that's right, hidden backdoors. Backdoors that seem to be made not for users to get control of their devices, but for attackers, cybercriminals who may be thousands of miles away able to remotely access and control your devices. And it's not just the cheap wavelength devices you find on Amazon as the choice router. The same hidden backdoors were discovered on Walmart exclusive Jetstream routers. Jetstream routers are sold exclusively by Walmart as their new line of affordable Wi-Fi routers. So let's hear from our senior information security researcher here at Cybernews, Mantas Sosnauskas, and how he worked together with two other cybersecurity researchers to uncover these hidden backdoors.
I'm Mantas, senior information security researcher at Cybernews. Some time ago, I was contacted by my friend Ronnie Carta, who asked me to look at his and another security researcher, James Klee, report about these Chinese routers. They found multiple critical vulnerabilities.
All right, so the good news is I'm going to be showing some of the tools you can use to detect some of these problems. So we have problems. The computers are designed to solve problems. We human beings are designed to solve problems, right? So when there's a problem, we want to solve it. Now, growing up in England, the English, all different countries, they have their own sort of personalities, you know, because of the different cultural beliefs. So this is Ember, which I basically went through a new firmware analysis. So let's say you've bought a new Wavelink router and you want to find out if there's hidden backdoors. You're going to be able to use your standard Ember open source firmware analysis tool, and you're going to be able to integrate ChatGPT to do, it's not replacing me, it's speeding up how much time I would take to reverse engineer and analyze the firmware. So it did, I've got to warn you, whilst you can do it automatically, it cost me $20 just to run the 8-hour of firmware analysis with this tool. So it's, of course, continuously querying with ChatGPT. When it finds the file system, it's going to then ask questions about the file system. So it's enabling us to do reverse engineering at a much rapid rate. So my suggestion is, if you have home Wi-Fi access points, set up the operating system yourself, like OpenWRT as an example. And again, this is where I'll show you what the quick walkthrough is. This is showing you the basic command line that you would use to run Ember. And you can see at the end, I'm specifying to do a GPT. So you need to apply for an API and preload your actual tokens. So from $10 as an example. And as I mentioned, 8 hours of firmware analysis with ChatGPT cost $20. So if I look at how long it would have taken me to do that work manually, the $20 was happily pay the $20 because it would have taken me 3 weeks to do what was done within 8 hours. So we can see the initial screen when you load it, the different modules that it runs. You can see it's going through setting up your specific variables. So there you can see it's telling you it's confirmed your OpenAI API key. And again, AI, this is the part where people who haven't built AI think you're crazy when you start speaking about science and technology. And that's, I'm telling you, when I started building AI 10 years ago, I didn't believe it was going to be helpful. I thought it was going to take over the world and chaos and mayhem and all these crazy ideas, right? But when I started building technology with AI, I then understood the capabilities. So before you have an opinion about something, I'm going to suggest something to you. Go and do it yourself first. If you read a book, that's only a small part of the information. You have to go and build it. Develop your skills because you then understand. Kids in Ethiopia had no schooling. They were given a tablet. This was a study done by MIT. And within 6 months, those kids that had no teacher, no schooling, they were given the tablets. They had no electricity or running hot water. They lived in the middle of Africa, in Ethiopia. They hacked Android without a teacher. How did they do that? The human mind is probably like a supercomputer. So believe in yourself and make sure before you have opinions about things that you go and do it before you have an opinion. Otherwise, you're going to be coming up with the wrong idea about the reality of how we can use this technology. So you'll see this is over 8 hours that this went through, finding all sorts of initial details about doing reconnaissance. So I'm just going to flip through this pretty quickly. And you'll see at the end, it came through after 8 hours and found a whole lot of weaknesses that I can now go and look for exploits to test against that router firmware. So helping you learn if your device, let's be honest, how many devices are now manufactured in Europe? Not enough. Most of our technology has been manufactured in China, and China's not a very big friendly nation right now because of the geopolitical standpoint. As you're going to see how they're using artificial intelligence and bots to cause a lot of misinformation, hacking people's ideas about reality because they're on the metaverse or they're in some kind of simulated virtual reality game. We've seen a huge challenge to law enforcement because people are being weaponized. So, yeah, there's some crazy things. Researchers teach AI to speak with your animals, your dogs. Yeah, I told you I'm in California, right? So they've got to come up with all these different ideas. I don't know if I would want to do this, though, but this is the results of AI and our technological evolution. So these are studies done by universities. It's not just me coming up with, some hypothesis. This is dogs barking and then us decoding their language. Now, some of you might not be familiar with AI because there's different forms of AI. You have your artificial narrow intelligence, which is normally designed very specifically for certain tasks. But then you have your AGI, which is your general intelligence. And then you have your ASI, your artificial super intelligence. ChatGPT, with the latest release of their latest language model version, is at the level of a PhD. So again, when farmers got a tractor, it didn't replace the farmer. It augmented the farmer's ability to do bigger and better farming. That's going to help us because our Earth planet, the population keeps growing. So we got to produce more food. And if we can use all this technology to engineer and then help farmers and help all sorts of people, including cybersecurity. So this is, again, latest research with ChatGPT-4, the only large language model that was capable of exploiting systems once they were programmed. You can see the results were fantastic. So if given the CVE details, your common vulnerabilities and exposure details, GPT-4 was able to exploit 87% of critical severities on its own. Again, it's not replacing you as a pen tester, it's speeding up your ability to find these weaknesses so we're not going to be wasting 197 days before we even realize we've been hacked. My kids grew up in the Czech Republic. This is their motherland. We want to make sure we try and create a safe environment for the younger generation. That's the responsibility us adults have. Now, there's a good side to this. if you build your artificial intelligence skills in different fields you may be interested in, you're going to get paid more. 21% from one of these studies from Microsoft. So we can earn more by learning new technologies. Now, this is a really cool little device. This is called the card computer. Comes from China. It's about 30 euros. And this is, I'm going to turn it on, and hopefully you've turned off all of your Wi-Fi on your Bluetooth on your cell phones, especially your iPhones, because very quick I'm able to launch a lot of sophisticated attacks. Now, if I add AI and the cloud to this device, I'm going to be able to do things very autonomously. We need to know how to do it manually first, because we got to train the AI and the machine learning, so we got to do things manually first. It's very, very simple. You will see how to set this up. This is the smaller version, which a lot of criminals are dropping these around hotels and airports. I know you can hardly see it. It's that small, right? You add a small little battery to it, and this little device, which is this one over here, can hack your devices. So these are things I want you to go and experiment with. The more people who know about these technologies, the safer the place is going to be. Now in Canada, this is the Flipper Zero, very, very popular. You may have heard they wanted to ban this because a lot of people in Canada are stealing motor cars. In South Africa, we used to have an alarm system that would be a flamethrower. That was way back. So nowadays, you can't have an alarm system on your motor car because here in the Czech Republic, remember, beer is cheaper than water. And if you make a mistake and you didn't turn your alarm off and you open your door and you're going to get completely burnt, yeah, so some of these technological ideas that we invented in South Africa was for South Africa, not necessarily for the new age. But they're using these devices to clone your key fob. So when you lock your motor car, they capture your code. So you think, my control didn't work. They capture your code, and then they can replay that later on and open up your motor car and steal it. There's a lot of different types of attacks. Our team of researchers are very young, new generation, so we're doing a lot of motor car hacking. But to show you how easy it is to set up these devices now, this is a GUI application that we can do it through Arduino and compile the code ourselves, where we then know what we're putting on those devices. But here you can see how easy it is. So for me, I would go down to my Evil Atom S3, or if I was using the card computer, I would select the different hardware. It's the same radio frequency chipset support. And as you can see, all you need to do is hit the burn button and plug your device in, and you've got a fully weaponized $15 hacking wireless Bluetooth, Bluetooth low energy, all of those wonderful things. Pretty cool. So I share this knowledge so that you can go and test these things. As I mentioned, don't believe anything anybody tells you unless you've tested it yourself, because nowadays we know that term called zero trust. What the hell does zero trust mean? Don't trust anything until you verify or validate it, right? So that's what we have to do always. Before you tell me I'm a conspiracy theorist, go and please verify and validate this information, because things are going to get a little scary as we continue through this presentation. I do a lot of work with the US military because I designed and developed certain technologies for drone defense and drone offense. Special lasers that can be used for healing purposes, but those same lasers could also be used for weaponized purposes. There's always a dual purpose. This is a very, very good book for the start of what we call the cyber war, when it started happening in Ukraine and they were targeting critical infrastructure. We can expect some electricity outages. Now, you happy? Because in the Czech Republic, we got cottages. And most of us have got solar panels, and we don't rely on the mainstream electricity and whatnot, right? But if more than 10 substations are targeted in a cyber attack, you can expect what you'll read in this book to become a reality. This is a book that a very good friend of mine, Win Schwartzo, just released. It's a book on how the metaverse is called the meta war. because it's programming our younger generation who are doing all of these virtual reality and you name it, right? So this is going to help you understand where we are at. AI can be used for good and bad. You're going to hear a brilliant presenter this afternoon talk about what AI can and can't do. I'm the guy that is building the technology and showing you what it can and can't do, not just reading it from a book. So you can see this was recently the Czech Republic, the Secret Service agency has figured out that a lot of propaganda is being pushed through the Russian Orthodox churches here in the Czech Republic. So it's clear the Orthodox Church of Moscow doesn't seem to be a legitimate church. So it's part of the Kremlin's repressive apparatus involved in Russia influence operations. Now, I don't want to offend anybody, but let's just say we know that Ukrainians are doing an amazing job, but we realize that how many of those Ukrainians are maybe not Ukrainians because Russia's been blocked at all different things. So how many of those people are actually Russian spies maybe? Oh, again, I think it's clear that the Czech Republic Secret Services is doing a great job. So this is reality. This is happening right now in the Czech Republic. The Chinese are using LinkedIn to recruit academics for espionage right here in the Czech Republic. The Czech intelligence services are warning everybody to be aware of these things because they could target our critical infrastructure. Again, later studies you can see how we can actually use artificial intelligence to improve our incident response skills as an example. Now this is the part where it starts getting a little bit crazy because they're using AI and automated bots to influence people, to get them to do things they would normally not do. And this is the part where we start thinking about how China have been working on advanced brain warfare. So devices that will send the enemy to sleep. Well, I'm a hacker, so I like to not sleep so much. So that's not a bad thing for me. But I think in the real world of cybercrime and cyber terrorism, that's why a lot of people don't understand. I don't work in the civilian space very often. We target a lot of advanced persistent threat actors that are generally terrorists. So we can see these are proven research that have been done by very well reputable sources, but we don't want to just accept that as truth. Go and verify it yourself. Because AI can be good or bad, depends on who's using it. So we're going to be able to develop countermeasures, defenses. This is what we call job stability. So we're going to have special radio frequency shields. We're going to have anti-sleep glasses that you wear. And of course, when it comes to the biological weapons, well, when we go back to the Cold War, China used biological warfare, weaponizing diseases like the plague or cholera. We went through a pandemic recently that was leaked from China. It doesn't take much to put two and two together and figure out that probably may have been the start of some kind of biological war. Because I was working for United Nations in the Middle East and in Asia at that time, doing a lot of deep dark web investigations for the government, the State Department, and the United Nations. So again, this is experience that I've had first-hand knowledge of. So are they using brain warfare? Yeah, well, because the technology exists and it can be used to help people walk where they were in a motor car accident. The neural link implant can be helping people that have got degenerative diseases. But of course, those people, if they can read your brain waves and say, oh, let's make Wayne act like a robot, that, they can probably control our brain waves, right? These are organizations that I suggest you go and research more because these guys come from the same place I come from, threat intelligence specialists. So you can see these are all very well-versed, experienced professionals that come from the US Air Force, the intelligence officers, signal intelligence analysts. So again, not conspiracy theories, science and evolution. All right, we can relax now. Now we can look at how cool AI is and what it can do for us.
Artificial intelligence isn't coming. It's here. It's the defining technology of our time. But it's human ingenuity that makes it so powerful. Jane started losing her vision when she was 12.
California Street.
She uses Seeing AI,
I crept down the stairs.
Crept down the stairs and out the door.
which enables her to read and navigate her world. Microsoft AI is helping farmers adapt to climate change,
We can use technology to help feed the world without wrecking the planet.
enabling wildlife conservation,
The ability to use AI really democratizes science. WildMe uses images from any source to help study endangered species.
and creating new ways for people with hearing loss to communicate.
I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have.
It's more than just imitating intelligence or sounding like a human. Microsoft AI is changing every industry.
So, what is AI? Well, there's a lot of different components to AI. Machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, document intelligence, knowledge mining, generative AI. And of course, what is machine learning? It's a subset of AI. People think machine learning is it's part of the process, as you'll see when we go through a demo, of how you can build yourself a Raspberry Pi with computer vision recognition. With a Raspberry Pi, a cheap, €50 computer, or maybe a bit more.
Artificial intelligence helps us meet the needs of today so we're prepared for tomorrow.
By 2050, we need to produce 60% more food. So how are we going to feed the world without wrecking the planet? Using Microsoft artificial intelligence, we can reduce waste and produce more food.
All right, now I don't work for Microsoft. I'm just sharing with you things that you can do with AI. And so that Seeing app, helping people with impaired vision, you can go and download that.
Microsoft research project for people with visual impairments. The app narrates the world around you by turning the visual world into an audible experience. Point your phone's camera, select a channel, and hear a description. The app recognizes saved friends.
Jenny near top right, 3 feet away.
Describes the people around you, including their emotions.
28-year-old female wearing...
What? Including their emotions? Oh, that's helpful for men because, men are a bit different to women, right? We don't have so much sensitive feelings of emotions. So, yes, some of these things can be helpful. Whether you're going to be using it for computer vision models or you're going to use it for identifying objects, like use Waymo motor vehicles as an example, right? These autonomous motor vehicles. So really, we're able to use a lot more. Electricity, unfortunately, is the downside to all of this AI. Microsoft has just bought a nuclear power plant that was, in the US, 3 Mile Island. They've just bought a nuclear power plant that they're going to be rebuilding. Why? AI gets bigger and bigger and better and more powerful, but it needs more electricity. So there's a cost to our ecological system when we're using AI, and that's the part where we have to become a lot more efficient at using the technology in a more sparingly way. So we can use optical character recognition. You've seen this when we talk about Gen AI, generative AI. You're not just using text, you're using audio, you're using other forms of input. So you can do much more efficient face detection. Like China was able to find one person that had an unpaid parking ticket or something silly like that in 300,000 people. At like a music concert, they were able to use AI to recognize who are criminals as an example. So this is a game where you're going to see theft detection by using AI. If somebody walks into a shop, you're going to see a lot less people having to man those stores because we've got robots that will be cleaning the shop. And of course, we've got video surveillance that is way beyond our understanding. So there you can see it's going to be detecting what this person's doing by putting something in his pocket, right? This is all AI. Now, some of us feel uncomfortable about that because we feel our privacy is being, jeopardized. Well, yeah. Let's look at LinkedIn. How many of you use LinkedIn? Oh, you won't admit it. Probably most of you. Well, if you didn't know this, you want to go and check your application. And recently, LinkedIn was caught enabling your machine learning and AI to collect all of your behaviors from your device. So make sure later on today you go and search for how to remove the automatic machine learning on your LinkedIn application. So they're using your data without your approval, without your consent, to train their large language models and other forms of AI that they may be using. So when we look at NLP, or natural language processing, we got to understand how it can actually change the world when it comes to virtual reality. And I come from England, where the weather's not so good, so we played a lot of games. Not like we see now, right, with AI, but take a look at this video.
So think about this. How often are you alive when the dawn of a new medium comes out? I knew that I had to be a part of VR because there are no rules for what VR should be. Starship Commander is a choose-your-own-adventure VR narrative that uses natural language processing, so you can actually have a real conversation with the characters.
I'm Sergeant Sarah Pearson. I've been assigned to your wing today.
When we started making Starship Commander, we had to figure out, how do we get technology that can understand what a person's saying so that we can have these new narrative experiences? We're a science fiction game. We come up with new words. No off-the-shelf software could let us put in custom words.
Who are the Echnians?
In our story, the bad guys are called the Echnians. And every time we said Echnian, it would come up with really weird words that were similar to other things that you would say. And so it would get confused all the time. So we needed to make sure that we could supply our own script. We started using Microsoft Cognitive Services to power the back end of Starship Commander.
Looks cool.
Once we plugged custom speech service into Starship Commander, I had tears in my eyes when I was playing it, because it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is the experience we want.
All right, so yes, we can see building these things with the existing technology. Unfortunately, the cloud is a place where you can do amazing things, but it's not so cheap, especially when you start using AI. As I mentioned, using ChatGPT to do 8 hours of reconnaissance on a router firmware. Yeah, so we can do a lot of these things. Now, the reason why I'm speaking a lot about Microsoft is because I come from a Microsoft engineering background. I did my MCSE in the 1990s, and ever since I was a MCT for some time, and I kept evolving, gaining skills in other areas. But Microsoft really has set the stage to build this technology in a much more simplistic manner. So there's a lot of slides, but I'm going to let you obviously go back and rewind and watch this so you can go and research this with bigger detail. And the case studies help you understand what you can actually do in perhaps your specific industry. So generative AI, that's the capabilities that are interacting in different ways, right? Chat applications, taking into natural language input. So there's different formats and different objects that learn, right? Your images, your code, your audio, your videos, you're able to upload a lot of that. However, there's still a lot of challenges. Here's a quick story with AI where a law firm in America were investigating a case, and they said, hey, ChatGPT, go and tell me all previous lawsuits that met this criteria. And AI came back and it listed all these different previous cases. And so the lawyers didn't check it. They went to court, and the other lawyers checked it to say, hey, hello, we can't find those cases on the other systems. Are you sure you checked ChatGPT? It wasn't hallucinating? And it turned out artificial intelligence is so powerful, if it doesn't know the answer, it doesn't say, I don't know. It gives you some information, and it comes up with a hallucination, like fake information. So we still have problems. It's not perfect, folks. That's why stop thinking it's going to replace you. It's not. It's going to help you do a better job so you got more time to go to your cottages and have fun. I'm not going to go into the responsible use of AI and privacy with Microsoft because they've been doing some bad things. LinkedIn automatically collecting your data without your consent is probably not a good thing. But this is where we realize that feature called recall, where they wanted to train their AI models by taking a photo of your desktop screen, everything you were doing when you typed your password, when maybe you were watching something that is not for young kids, as an example, they taking a screenshot of everything you do on your machine. And of course, they realize they're going to remove it, and then they've just recently tried to put it into the preview, right? So your insider program to enable it to try and tell you that it's going to be used for great purposes. So we won't watch that video. You can go and read more about this information. It's something that we figured out how to hack that recall feature. Within a few hours, we were able to extract all of that data that the recall features was using. So as a result, my main machine has now become a Linux machine. Why? Because it's open source. If I don't trust the kernel, I can go and look at what is in the kernel. With Microsoft, we saw what happened with CrowdStrike. Let's not go down that road, right? How many of you had to put out those fires after CrowdStrike left you with a blue screen of death? How many of you had to deal with those blue screen of death machines? Some of you can talk to me, it's okay. Dobry den. So, yes. Now, this is where we're going to get into building your Raspberry Pi. I've got a few minutes left to take you through where my journey started in AI. You can do this currently right now, but this is going to help you understand from a broad perspective of how we can build, in this case, using a Raspberry Pi and the older Intel neural compute stick. The neural compute sticks are allowing you to basically simulate brain neural activity. So there's a little advert there. We won't watch that. We're just going to go straight to the overview of, we start off with the training, right? So this is information directly from Intel and Movidius GitHub repository. So you don't do the training on your Raspberry Pi. It's not powerful enough, right? You do that on a much bigger system. You've seen how you can take your LLMs and build your own local version of the LLMs. So let's say your company wants to set up a chatbot. You don't want to use the, company information that's private and put it in the publicly accessible LLM, because then you're going to obviously have some bigger problems. So take your own internal copy of an LLM and modify it, enrich it with your training sets, and that's the part where you then move into the profiling, the tuning, the compiling, and then you eventually come up with some really cool prototype, right? So set up your dependencies. Again, this is on a Raspberry Pi, but I remember having a 333 megahertz computer way back with 32 megabytes of RAM, and I thought I was pretty cool. And now we walk around with these cell phones that have got 16 core processors and 64 gig of RAM. 64 gig of RAM. I'm giving my age away here, right? 32 meg versus 64 gig. We've seen how evolution is doubling so much every year. So once you've downloaded the code, compile it. Once you've compiled it, you're going to go and set up your NCAP Zoo. It's a specific application, a sample application from your Neural Compute App Zoo marketplace. And you can install the actual API in different modes based upon how much space you have and how much processing power you have. You may have heard of OpenCV, Open Computer Vision. You can go and take free courses online. I'm sorry, I know Goppus may be not going to be so happy with me telling you that though, but yes, this is freely available where you can go and get a lot of training online for free. Harvard University, called CS50, has got free training on programming, on AI. All of that is freely available. So OpenAI is huge, but there's still problems with money. Microsoft and all those other big companies that are backing them keep investing billions and billions of dollars, because right now it's a lot of money for the electricity to build your LLMs and all of your AI technologies. So this is why it's, even though some of you might be paying $20 a month for access to OpenAI, they're still losing money. They're not profitable yet. Although they were the fastest uptake of users. Within 5 days, they had 1.2 million users on their platform. way faster than any other historical Facebook, MySpace, and you name it. So there's over 2,500 algorithms. An algorithm is a set of instructions where you're going to instruct it to do different things. So you want to be able to visualize your simulated brain activity, your neural network. And this is where you can use TensorFlow Graph as an example. You can use Keras, MXNet. Some of these are not as popular nowadays. Those are your convolutional neural networks. And that's giving you a little bit of an example where you're going to have a break shortly, so I will try and push a little bit more of the mathematical side of AI. So you can see some of the actual formulas explaining your neural networks. Pretty simple there on the bottom right-hand side, right? But you can go and, of course, read more and research more. So add in your actual graph to your Raspberry Pi. So as mentioned before, you're going to be using your Movidius software developer kit, which is based on the CAFE implementation of the Google mobile net. It's basically a deep learning model that, in our case, is trained to recognize 20 objects. So once the model's been trained, you copy that model onto your Raspberry Pi or onto your IoT devices that you're managing in the cloud. Because once they've been trained, you copy the trained model onto those devices. It could be a drone where you want to not fly the drone, because when I started trying to fly the drones and build them, the first 20 drones would always crash the first time I took it out to fly. You know, because we got some problems with what we call software. And sometimes software has glitches and bugs in. And when you're trying to flash a tiny, small little chip that's doing a lot of mathematical calculations, yeah, you're in the middle of the air and you've got 4 propellers that need to be balanced. You've got to see some of my video footage at a later stage. That's not for today, but it was pretty funny. So once you've loaded your trained model, in this case of 20 objects, you can see it's not so high resolution because it's on a Raspberry Pi. That was me taking a photo of my Raspberry Pi screen. So what could we also use this for? Well, maybe you've got a cottage and, excuse me, it wasn't me, it's not my butt, as you see in the picture there, but that's where you can use it as a security camera, right? So you can automatically use AI to detect and record when there's movement, as an example. And this is where you can also engineer some of this within AWS or Azure. So in summary, we looked at installing the neural compute stick. We spoke about OpenCV. We spoke about how you add your graph to your Raspberry Pi. And then we showed you how to run the live object detector. So this is, again, where you can research the latest university papers of how artificial intelligence are going to help us in our day-to-day cybersecurity tasks, whether it be offensive, defensive, blue team, red team, or biomedical device researchers. You can see it's enabling us to do a lot more work. It's not perfect, though, but thank you so much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be leaving shortly after this presentation, so I may not be available later on, but please feel free to contact us through LinkedIn. It's a great honor and a privilege to have presented for you folks. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and I can assure you, go out and have some fun with this new technology. Hopefully it's helped you to incentivize you to go and research more and build more of your artificial intelligence skills. We will be running a new portfolio of artificial intelligence skills building programs at GOPUS. What that means is we're not getting you to take an exam or a certification. Those are important. But what we want to do is teach people to do their job better by teaching you how to do the job with new skills. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing all of you in the future, and have the rest of the day as a beautiful, wonderful day. Enjoy. Thank you.